Unintentionally, I am probably about to deliver the most watched speech of my political career, which of course is coming to an end. Basically, the agenda item is called what it is called, meaning I think the signatures were collected on Friday. That means the purpose of this agenda item has already been fulfilled. That means Blažek really did resign immediately. What is probably running through Pavel Blažek's mind the most right now is that it never occurred to me that joining the transit agreement could cause, I would say, a social, not just a political crisis. And for that, I want to apologize to all of you in this hall. At the same time, I really notice, and with some of you, I have been here for 12 years, and I actually want to thank you for the fact that even though we may be in different political parties, in your comments about what happened, you still maintain a certain, I would say, generally human approach and do not exploit the situation for exaggerated statements against me personally, apart from commenting on the situation itself. What is always interesting are the moralizers who are unable to maintain basic ethics in personal interactions, and that is what truly matters between people. So when I listen to speeches here, for example, from the Pirate Party, I could also bring up a lot of things, but I won't do that. And I won't do it precisely because one of the things I've adhered to my whole life is the ethics of personal relationships, where I don't use situations to constantly criticize and so-called finish off someone who is already leaving just for the sake of it. Let the voter realize how each person behaves even in this situation and who is taking advantage of it and using it. As for the case itself, look, I've already said absolutely everything in the public space and basically I have nothing more to add to it. What I do know, however, is that any effort to involve other members of the government and so on is certainly politically interesting, but it's out of touch with reality. The reality was truly such that the decision-making processes regarding this donation contract took place at the ministry I was in charge of, or will still be in charge of de jure for another 3 days, or however many days it is. No one else was involved in this. And there's one thing I want the Czech public to understand as well. Until March 7th of this year, no one had any idea how high the values in question could possibly be. Because up until then, no one was even sure whether it would be possible to open the storage devices that had been in police custody, I think for 10 years or so all. Then there was an underestimation in that when the amount turned out to be so high, well, Minister Blažek was blinded by the idea that the money could go to the department he manages for necessary things. And I did not fully consider the reputational and, I would say, generally ethical issue that this could cause in the eyes of the public. That was my big political mistake. And that was also the reason why I resigned from the position, because if someone is unable to foresee what consequences something might have for the public, then quite simply they have no business holding a public office. I want to thank all of you with whom I have spent many years here for, basically I would say, for the cooperation and also for the pleasant moments I was able to experience here with you. Today, I am pleased by one more thing, that the debate in the corridors is different from the debate here in front of the cameras. And I am very glad that even so not a few members of parliament from opposition parties genuinely want to know my personal position on this matter, and I had no reason not to tell them. However, I absolutely understand that in front of the cameras in this hall during an election year, politics is conducted in a way that must be outwardly visible, simply because it is an election year. I would therefore like to apologize not only to the governing coalition, but also to the opposition, because the way the whole story is being described today truly damages the reputation of politics as such. But perhaps a final sentence. There are some cases whose true nature, their significance, what you read in the media, what is and isn't connected, may only become clear and evident with the passage of time. I can't judge, and I think none of you can either. When you read various articles here, what in those articles is reality, what is and isn't connected, and what consequences it ultimately has just in relation to that donation agreement. That is, of course, a problem that I will have to carry with me for some time. Wherever I go, there will be questions about Bitcoin. How it actually was or wasn't, but let's acknowledge that people perceive information from the media, and as I've already said, maybe things that can't be connected are being linked together, and one day it might be necessary to know this. I wouldn't even be surprised if this case became the subject of some literary work, maybe even a film. And by the way, that's exactly it. And I've never, ever said otherwise, and I never will. That's actually what attracted me to this case. And that's the possibility that someone, just because they served a long prison sentence and didn't have access to certain assets for a long time, maybe, and that word is important, maybe just because of that, their property increased. And I think I have nothing more to add to this matter. There are a lot of questions here, but I really have already said everything. I don't know what more I could say about it. Everything is in the public domain. I think that absolutely all the documents that were at the ministry are now also in the public domain. Of course, they are evaluated in various ways, and it's clear that we made mistakes. Those are being described. I don't think I need to keep repeating here that the overall process was simply flawed, especially in the way it looked. And nowadays, what really matters is how something appears, not what it actually contains. My intentions were honorable, but honor does not often mean that it aligns with cleverness. That means I really did see things from a departmental perspective. And what is extremely important is that when I hear some opposition MPs here say that this is a corruption case, well, it's a case that looks bad, but it is definitely not a case of corruption. If it were a case of corruption, it would have to be that the state lost something and some politician or official, for example, ended up with it at home. Here, however, we have a paradoxical situation where, on the contrary, the state actually gained money. There is no evidence, I haven't read anywhere, not even a suspicion that any politician personally benefited from that money. So calling it a corruption case is a false label. It's an unfortunate case that comes across as rather bizarre. It's a case that, because of how it's being described, is causing distrust among our fellow citizens. That's also true, but it is definitely not a case of corruption. And I can say with absolute certainty that if anyone thinks I personally or anyone from the ministry gained any personal benefit from this, they are very, very mistaken. This may have been my last speech here at this microphone in my life. So I wish you all the best of luck. We'll see how the elections turn out, who among you will be here and who won't. I certainly won't be here anymore. And once again, I apologize to you, even for the fact that you have to spend today dealing with what happened at the Ministry of Justice and with how this matter looks. But I've said this once before, and I'll say it again. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's that famous Chernomyrdin quote. We meant well, but it turned out as it always does. That's what we managed to do. My resignation is entirely appropriate, but I want to emphasize that it is purely for political reasons. Thank you for your attention.